Hey everybody, this is Two Guys, One Movie.
Spooky Ghost Edition in 3D.
That's right. This is Steve Arviso and
Charles Musick.
And today we are doing Peter Jackson's The Frighteners. That's right, the guy who brought King Kong and Lord of the Rings. Did a cheesy horror film featuring Michael J. Fox and the ghost of John Astin.
The guy that brought us Heavenly Creatures and Meet the Feebles.
Meet the Feebles? Which one was that?
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother podcast.
No, but we are talking about The Frighteners, Michael J. Fox's final live-action starring role.
Before he moved to Spin City.
And did several voice acting gigs.
Yeah.
And then his failed sitcom.
I actually like The Frighteners a lot. I was surprised, too, because I don't remember seeing trailers or anything for it. I never saw it in theaters. Did you get to see this in theaters?
No, I think I saw it on VHS.
Oh, okay, yeah. See, same here. When it came out, I rented it, I think.
I remember the poster, though. The poster was freaky. The poster was a lot scarier than the actual movie. The movie itself is very much Ghostbuster-y, in the fact that it's a comedy with horror elements.
Yeah, but when you pitch the idea to somebody or you explain it, it sounds scary.
As according to our research, apparently, and by research we mean Wikipedia, it was originally intended as a spin-off of Tales from the Crypt, the TV show from HBO. Classic TV show. And classic comics as well. But Robert Zemeckis was originally intended to do this as a spin-off. He was supposed to direct, and he eventually handed it off to Peter Jackson, and they did a full feature. Which
now that learning that was supposed to be a spin-off of Tales from the Crypt, I can see where this would have been a story, short story, and it would have fit perfectly.
A 45-minute run, yeah, it would have been fine.
Or like a Tales from the Dark Side, or something like that. But for the most, it runs pretty long. It's a 110-minute movie, so if they were going to do it, based off that, it would have had to have been like a direct-to-video or direct-to-TV movie, something like that.
Very much. Tales from the Crypt, for those who don't know, was a long-running TV show from HBO. Eventually ran in syndication, especially on, I believe it was Fox, late at night on Saturdays. I think it was around 11, 12 o'clock at night in most areas. 1 o'clock? Was it that late? Oh, wow. But the syndication obviously was a lot more toned down with HBO. There's a lot more violence and gore and sex involved in it. It was based off the old EC Comics, Tales from the Crypt, Vault of War, stuff like that. And as creepy as horror related as it was, kind of like a really turned up version of like Twilight Zone and other franchises like that, it was still very schlocky. They reveled in the fact that it was very schlocky and comedic at times. So they weren't afraid to go full comedy on certain stories. And this would be right at home, like Charles was saying. It has been very much at home on an episode of Tales from the Crypt. I can even imagine the Crypt Keeper popping up at the beginning and end as bookends for this movie. I'm surprised they didn't even do that.
Yeah. So now, as I said, when you describe it to people, it sounds like a horror film. It doesn't sound like a comedy, like you're saying.
Yeah.
I'll give you a basis of it. Basically, Frank, Michael J. Fox, his wife dies in, I believe it's a car accident.
Yes. Oh, well, yeah.
And now Frank can see ghosts from the traumatic experience or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically sitting in this dream house that he was building for him and his wife, and he befriends 3 ghosts who he starts using to terrify victims, like go and pretend to poltergeist their house.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then he comes in and clears them away. But he's not seen as like a hero or someone who can help, like a ghost hunter. He's seen as a con man.
Yeah, which is exactly what he is.
Exactly.
He's pretty much the Ghostbusters if they were all Peter Venkman. That's exactly how you can really see.
Yeah.
He's a wise ass. He's a con man. It's like when Peter Venkman goes into Dan Barrett's apartment, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He's just kind of doing something.
Spraying stuff, yeah.
Yeah. This is one of our little toys.
Exactly.
And that's exactly the setup here. And, John Astin, the former Gomez Addams, is the one that plays the judge, which is a old-timey cowboy that is one of the 3 ghosts that he befriends and pulls all these little stunts with. I can't remember the other 2. Who were the other 2? One was like a 70s blaxploitation character.
And then one was kind of a nerdy guy.
Oh, that's right. The dorky guy. It was like from like the 80s or 60s or something like that. It's a slightly different decade. Yeah, they're just about 4 best friends, 3 best friends, and then an old codger that
She McBride as Cyrus, a gangster who was one of Frank's deceased, and Jim Fife as Stewart, a nerd who was one of Frank's deceased associates.
Yeah. So, it's really interesting because
they fit though, as you're saying, like Ghostbusters. If he's the Venkman, I would say that, then She McBride is kind of like your Ray almost. And then you got your Egon,
Yeah.
the nerd.
That's very true. And they don't even as ghosts, they don't really know much about themselves. They just kind of know what they've picked up over the decades that they've been dead.
And they found a guy that can see them, and they befriended him.
Yeah, they have someone to talk to, and he has someone to help him make a little bit of money on the side after his failed architecture business. The trauma of losing his wife in an accident.
But then, of course, this creature starts showing up. This Grim Reaper-like creature is going around killing all these people. And Frank, of course, can see these numbers on the foreheads before it happens, like the next victim.
Yeah, and he starts piecing it together, and what he starts to obviously he starts getting seen as the guy who's perpetrating this.
He's showing up at all the crime scenes right as the crime's happening or before it's happening.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, he's here at this restaurant where this person was just killed.
And seeing that, you could kind of see the Tales from the Crypt layout in terms of the story. This would be the point where you'd see that swerve towards the end where someone he's trying to do the right thing, and then someone comes in and sets him up for the murder or something like that. You could really start seeing it at that point, and then it goes quite a bit different as the story goes on.
I actually like the special effects, and one of the effects, a little spoiler,
I believe it said it was by Wetaworks, that the special effects was early stuff by Wetaworks.
Mm-hmm. And Frank actually lets himself get killed, basically, or, near-death experience, so he can escape his body and become a ghost as well, and he starts fighting this Grim Reaper, which we find out is Jake Busey.
Of course, there's only one. Well, there's only two people it possibly could have been, Jake or Gary. So
Gary would have been terrifying.
It would have been like having Tim Curry.
But I still like Jake Busey a lot. He's a damn fine actor.
So was his dad before the accident. I'm not saying anything bad. Just it's a very terrifying family, just in general.
But I mean, being able Frank turning into a ghost and going around, it was something I didn't see coming at all, really, in the movie. And then he gets brought back, and then it happens again, and all this stuff, and he keeps playing back and forth.
And there's unlike very much unlike the Tales from the Crypt series, which always just like 99% of the time have awful ending, because the stories that they tell are usually about bad people doing bad things and bad things happening to these people as punishment. It has a happy ending.
It does, yes. I mean, Frank actually, spoiler, gets to go to heaven and briefly and see his wife and his fallen comrades.
Yeah. And
his wife tells him, hey, it's not your time, go back and be happy. And of course he hooks up with Lucy, I believe it is.
Yeah.
The female character that he's been running around with. But a little tidbit, did you know that the film score was written and composed by Danny Elfman?
No, I didn't.
I didn't either. I was, in our little research through Wikipedia, of course. It's an interesting,
It had a really interesting production team. You had Danny Elfman, you had, Peter Jackson, Robert Zemeckis was still a producer on it, Michael J. Fox, Chi McBride, there we go. I always forget his name. I love him on TV shows, but...
Jim Fife.
Who is Jim Fife? Why is that name escaping me right now?
Jim Fife, he plays the nerd, of course, but, he's played in a little movie. He was in The Program, if you remember, the football.
One of the Scoleri brothers in Ghostbusters 2.
There you go. So he's actually older when he...
He's played two ghosts in two films that were very similar.
Yeah?
Tonally, at least.
And the special effects, in the Scoleri brothers scene actually is very kind of similar.
True. Yes, the ghost effects the ghost effects from Ghostbusters 2 are very similar to this. The Scoleri brothers.
It's a fun movie to watch, especially with people watching horror films constantly. We're mentioning all these, graphic films or obscure. This is one that you can have fun with, kind of like a Ghostbusters, but it still fits the theme perfectly.
Yeah, and for those younger audiences who end up watching it with their parents, if you show it to your kids or whatever the case might be, it can be scary for them. There are scary moments. The special effects are very good. The presentation of the Grim Reaper, even the judge is kind of freaky because he's old.
When Jake Busey's running around before he takes off the hood and stuff, as that Grim Reaper, it was creepy.
Yeah, even the judge, John Astin dressed up as a decaying cowboy because they point out that as the ghosts age with time and use up their energy, whatever they're comprised of, they start to degrade.
I mean, the Grim Reaper is not only killing living people, he's killing ghosts too.
Yeah.
So nobody's safe.
Nobody's safe. It's funny enough to enjoy, and it's clean enough, but it's scary for.
I wouldn't let a 5-year-old watch it, but 10, 11, 12, you'll be fine.
Yeah, definitely, and they'll definitely have a lot of fun with it. Of course, by that point, hopefully they're not already watching more gory stuff on Netflix or whatever, but...
And it's got Marty McFly. Your kids should already know who he is. By the age of 5, they should know who Marty McFly is.
By the age of 5, they'll at least know him as Stuart Little.
There you go.
See, there you go.
Yes. So yes, The Frighteners. Peter Jackson. Dead yet?
Honestly, I still think... I will say this, I highly suggest it, and I still think it's one of Peter Jackson's finest films. He's got some better horror films out there, but this is one of his finest films and most entertaining. And definitely it's not 3-4 hours long, so there's that as well.
And it didn't have, like, the huge critical acclaim. You know, everyone... It kind of has a following now, of course, but... Yeah. You know, it wasn't this big blockbuster, so I imagine most people haven't heard of it or seen it.
Yeah, so go ahead, give it a shot, check it out. You should be able to find it at Walmart or Target. It's especially around this time of year. It's usually out there on DVD for about $5 or so, $5-7. It's pretty old. It's a little bit out there for. It's about 20 years old at this point, is it not? Yeah, almost 20 years old. So give it a shot. This has been Charles Musick and Steve Arviso for Two Guys One Movie, The Frighteners by Peter Jackson. We'll be back tomorrow with more.